Many years ago, I found myself at the parts desk at a hardware store, standing around waiting for the fellow behind the counter to get off the phone. He was holding forth in a bedraggled and somewhat grisly West Texas accent, and he appeared to be explaining something for the third or fourth time. With a bow danker like that, he told the person on the other end, you're going to go around 60 inches palm to palm. He scratched his head with the eraser end of a pencil, and he gave me a look that said he'd rather I not be there. Galvanized, he said into the phone, mushroom-style bow danker. He looked at me again. Was I really still here? And although I was trying to look cool, as though I had any idea what this guy was talking about, my mind was reeling, and my imagination was working overtime. Let's see. Bow danker. Bow danker. I flipped through my mental index of car and lawnmower parts. Nothing matched in there, but it didn't take long. I had once owned an 81 Chevette, probably the worst car ever made. The main parts of that were baling wire, super glue, duct tape, and drywall screws. Didn't they recall the bow danker on the 81? No, that was the gas tank and the seat belts. High tensile, said the man behind the counter into the phone. 500 pounds, but you can weld it back if it breaks. Oh, that kind of a bow danker, the really heavy kind. And when at last the man had hung up and I gave him my order, I said, by the way, just curious, what's a bow danker? And without looking up from his work, he answered in a voice completely free of any accent, a boat anchor. Words are powerful, aren't they? They make meaning, they order the world, they carve sense out of chaos. And equally, words can have power over us, especially if we don't understand what's happening or being said. When confronted by the strange and the unfamiliar, we usually withdraw into the same strategies. We go to speculation, we go to fear, insecurity. It's easier to repress and hide and deny the unfamiliar than it is to just play around with it or let it be. And such is certainly the case with the notion of doubt, the sort of thing our friend Thomas displays in today's reading. It happens when the dew is still fresh on the resurrection and Jesus comes into a closed room, dragging behind him still the specter of his own recent death. And suddenly all that gossip that they've been hearing, all those idle tales, those unfamiliar and confronting ideas about Jesus being no longer dead, all of that now is no longer just words. It seems that in church we've somehow turned the idea of doubt into something bad, something that we should abhor. Why? Thomas doesn't apologize for displaying that trait, does he? And we still name churches after him to this day. He's in glass on these walls. So why is doubt a byword in matters of belief? Why so juxtaposed with the very idea of believing in the first place? Church may be the last place in society where doubt can't seem to get its foot in the door these days, and yet we all have it. Doubt, in a sense, is one of the main drivers powering the rest of the world. If I offered you a hot stock tip on a company you'd never heard of, would you just take that at face value? Go out and liquidate all your savings and throw in? You'd check it out first, of course. Would you get into a car that had no brakes? Would you leave your front door standing open while you're on vacation? Go without insurance because it felt like the right thing to do? Take medicine that didn't come with a label or doctor's instructions? Of course not. We live in a world that teaches us to strive for peace of mind and security, to trust everybody but cut the cards, as Fenley Peter Dunn is quoted as saying. Minimizing risk and liability is just the order of the day. Doubt is rewarded and celebrated in the rest of the world. And then we hit the door of the church in our faith lives, and we're handed an awful lot, as Thomas is, and just expected to believe it. So suddenly, somehow, doubt is not virtuous anymore. It's not a part of the human journey to God. It becomes anathema, muddying the water. Its meaning is now variable and uncertain, and our doubts, for some reason, we regard as unhealthy. So strange, because in the rest of our lives, we could swear we were supposed to show healthy skepticism, being the thing that keeps us alive in life and business. We thought that was good, and then something happens. In this case, a resurrection. The resurrection happens. So rumors, gossip, let's have some proof instead. We're completely within our rights to wonder and question and pound our fists into our palms and demand evidence. But when the evidence shows itself, we are equally within our rights, or rather within God's realm, to be suddenly speechless and worshipful. It's all okay. The doubt, and then the shock, and the joy, and the wonder, it's all okay. Easter makes it so. God is interested in your whole self, and really nothing less. That's how love works. God's regard is total. So doubt is not the way that faith is destroyed, it's the way that faith builds concretely and over time, as part of the process of learning to take responsibility for ourselves. It's part of the process of being a mature person of faith. What destroys Christian faith is something else, like apathy, distraction, divisions in the body of the faithful, or hateful speech and action in Jesus' name. There was a 13th century mystic named Meister Eckhart. And he said that the act of faith is a constant dialogue with doubt. Engage that thought this morning for a moment. That faith might just be us constantly dialoguing with our doubts. Notice, please, not as combatants, not in a bickering battle, but a dialoguing, a back and forth, a giving and a taking, not pinning it down, beating doubt into submission, or ever walking away, nor treating it as an adversary or a thing to be overthrown or disproven, but dialoguing with doubt, conversing with our questions, just engaging them, holding it all in one great messy jumble, and being willing to call that thing our faith. God will not spurn you just because you have a few questions or want to see some evidence. Some questions remain questions for our whole lives, and sometimes God answers a question in the strangest of ways. So, from that perspective, doubt is no longer a bowed anchor. It's a powerful ally in our faith journey, because ignoring our doubts doesn't make them go away. Does it grieve God if we voice our questions? No, not in the least. I suspect what does is when we pretend that everything is always completely fine. And that's a good place to be when you're set to be baptized, which is what's happening for Callie and Evan in just a few moments. It's good to know that spiritual community is about upholding one another in the course of our lives through every kind of circumstance and season, through every good question and every helpful doubt we have. That's the sort of faith that makes us strong over time, honest and robust people of faith. And that's what we want Callie and Evan to know. That in Jesus we are confident that we can bring our entire selves before God, to know that we are loved and blessed.